I wanted to talk to you guys today about this huge umbrella of a topic called allergies. What's happening is there's two things causing the itching most of the time. One is the primary allergy, but two is the secondary infection. We might have secondary staph, we might have secondary yeast, and so both of them cause itching. Both of them work in tandem to make you crazy. But first of all, I wanted to talk to you about some of the symptoms that we see with allergies. We can see itchy skin. We can also see digestive issues. We might have vomiting, diarrhea, we might have constipation. We might have a dog that doesn't want to eat or a cat that doesn't want to eat, and that could have something to do with allergies. Is your dog or cat itchy, all night long itching and driving you crazy? Well, there are so many holistic things you can do, and I am going to talk about them all in this video. But first, we want to talk about the causes of allergies. What causes an animal to itch like that? Sometimes we have things that are not allergies. So we have mites, we have fleas, so parasite problems. Sometimes we have biome problems. There should be a healthy competition in the skin surface, and sometimes the animal's on antibiotics when he's young, and then guess what? He itches because he's got too much yeast growing. We're doing it with no cytopoint, no Apoquil. We're not suppressing anything. We're just making it so the dog is healthier. So how do we do that? Where do we even begin with that? I think the thing that we need to realize is kind of what's going on. So let's just talk about that first. What is going on when your dog is itching too much? Your dog's immune system is weak. Your dog's immune system is confused. So it's weak and confused. How do we change that? Why is this an epidemic? Why do we have so many itchy dogs? It's a combination of purebred dogs, genetic combination, vaccinating too young, vaccinating too much, and also the 70,000 untested chemicals that America allows to go into the food chain and to go into the environmental system that your pet is exposed to, and we're exposed to, I'm exposed to. So what do we do with that? How do we iron all those things out? That's what we do here at the clinic. Thousands of dogs get better from their itchy skin. I recommend that people go on a limited vaccine protocol, and in the state of Washington, we're lucky, we just use rabies every 3 years, and that's all that's required by law. That's all that's required to go up into Canada, travel, be on the plane. And so to me, that's the safest thing. And so we've let go, in the adult dogs at least, of our other vaccines, taken the burden off of their immune system. And I think it's important, we should have that whole vaccine discussion a little bit more. I know it's a hot topic right now, and if you guys are interested, comment, share, questions, I will make another video about that. If the dog has been vaccinated a lot, the first step we do is we do a vaccinosis protocol. So we use Thuja occidentalis and a homeopathic remedy, and we use something called Vivo Zeoclear. It's a wonderful way to detox the animal. So those two products, and then we change the diet. No matter what, if you have an itchy dog, you have a dietary problem. And I will just tell you right now, it's really hard to get dogs better without drugs or suppressive medications if they're on a kibble-based diet, if they're on a dead diet, if they're on a carb-rich diet, right? Because what I do is I've separated them out in my practice here, and we basically break it down so it's real simple. We work with a diet that limits primary allergens. You should stop feeding your dog chicken, stop feeding your dog beef, stop feeding your dog fish and fish oils, because there's a cross reaction. It's not just the protein, right? It may start with the protein allergies, and then it morphs into this crazy thing where your dog, when the dog eats fish oil, he can start itching. So we actually go for a carb-free diet, not a grain-free diet. Any of the other carbohydrates, if it's a kibble, it's a carbohydrate, okay? So that means it can feed the yeast. That means it can feed the staph that you don't want to feed. So by using a meat and vegetable-based diet, a carb-free diet, we use turnips and rutabagas. We use raw detoxifying greens that we grind into the food processor, and we use fresh meats, whether they're cooked or raw, and we balance it with calcium and my vitamin mineral mix, as well as plant-based omegas like flax meal and others. So this is how we do it at the clinic, and we detox one dog after another. The first step is detoxification, because what is happening with allergies is that the liver is too overwhelmed. It's like a hotel that has no more room. And each of the inflammatory proteins, each of those hot inflammatory proteins comes to the liver asking for detoxification, but the liver has no more room. So what happens is all the blood takes all those toxins and lays them down in the skin, and that's where we have, you can see the inflammation, you can feel the heat coming off the dog. How do we heal the liver? We do it with diet, we do it with detoxifying greens. How do we take the allergen out of the picture? So a lot of times at the clinic here, we're using turkey and bison, and we're rotating one protein once a month, and we're changing it. And we're not letting people use treats. If you want to use treats, it has to perfectly match your protein source. Why? Because it takes 2 weeks for your dog to start mounting an antibody response to that turkey, that new protein, that protein he's never seen before. Even if he has beaver, he could start reacting to the beaver. Why? Because the dog is too reactive. The whole problem is that the dog's immune system is always looking for something to react to. So if he's overexposed to that protein, he's going to start reacting to the new protein, no matter how novel it is. So that is the problem. We have to do our protein rotations, and we have to have the treats match, everything match, or the treats be vegetable, or the treats be green beans, or steamed cauliflower, or something that's a non-protein, generally non-allergic type situation. So that's the first step. And if you want to get specific diets, some of them are on my website. Other people, there are a lot of commercial fraud diets. The problem is that a lot of them are mixed proteins, and a lot of them have fish oil in them. And that just doesn't work for most of my animal friends that come to see me, because they're so allergic to almost everything. So if your pet is itching excessively, what does it mean to itch excessively? I'm gonna think, like, if my dog itches more than once an hour. Cat may be excessively grooming, but maybe he's just a fastidious groomer. So, it's like we don't really want to pick on them if they're just fastidious, right? But if they are starting to cause areas of like no hair, or you can even see where the skin is red or pink, or if it's hot to the touch, then that's excessive grooming or excessive itching. So in that situation, they're pretty prime and set up to get a secondary infection, either a yeast or a bacteria. We want to try to basically nip it in the bud before it becomes an infection, which means we're trying to intervene in the early stages if we can, especially in holistic medicine. We can intervene before it starts getting into an infection. That would be really great. And you can see my other videos on yeast infections and staph infections, and there's a lot you can do for those too. Unfortunately, it's hard to distinguish between the symptoms, right? It could be an itchy dog with just plain allergies, or it could be an itchy dog with a yeast infection, or an itchy dog with staph, and they all kind of act similarly in the fact that the dog will itch and be uncomfortable. The staph lesions, I write about that I talk about that in my other video, but like there's a circular pustular lesion, right? A little circle red, maybe on the belly or up in the spine, and they lose hair there. Whereas the yeast, a lot of times they can lose hair, but it'll usually be a dark color, like a black color for the yeast, and it might be different shapes. It may not just be a circle. So hope that it helps you to distinguish what's going on with your pet. But the first thing when you see anything excessive as far as itching is that you need to change the diet. It's the number one thing, okay? Because first of all, there's going to be probably a food allergy. Not always. They do have itchy dog environmental allergies like grasses and trees. But most of the time, almost all the time, there's a food allergy too. It's not just environmental. There's a food and an environmental a lot of times. What we do is I do NATE to try to figure out, okay, what are these allergies? How many are there? Are they just simple things that we can avoid? And I've mentioned this in other videos, but we usually want to avoid chicken, beef, fish or fish oil, and grains. That isn't to say that we are really big advocates of grain-free kibble. We're not. We're usually trying to get the pet away from kibble altogether, and either on a homemade balanced diet, means you guys have to add calcium and other things, or a carb-free situation, or like a minimal carb situation. So that's less grains, generally less sweet potatoes and things like that. You basically try the new diet, and usually within a week you can see some difference, unless things are really, really bad or there's a lot of environmental allergies. So I guess the first rule is we're gonna look at the diet, change the diet. You know, I've come to realize that diet is really helpful for almost any problem, any chronic disease. And you guys, those of you who are worried about stopping fish oil, and maybe you're doing high doses of fish oil with allergies, you need to think about adding in a different type of omega-3. So we usually use flax meal here at the clinic. Flax meal is an excellent source of omega-3s. So it has anti-inflammatory effects, and it's usually not so allergic like fish oil is. Chicken, beef, grains, fish and fish oil. These are common allergens. So we're gonna try and change the diet. We're gonna try to avoid allergies, right? Other things that can help are medicated baths. So there's a number of different companies that kind of cater to this, right? A lot of times we recommend the essential oil-based Healthy Shine shampoo made by Silk Road Organics out in Massachusetts. And nobody pays us for this, you guys. I'm just telling you what usually works. Or Zymox shampoo. Zymox has a shampoo and a rinse, and sometimes that can really help, especially when there's secondary yeast already happening. The conventional shampoos for allergies, so like ones with antibiotics, ones with anti-yeast, sometimes those can be helpful, and sometimes they dry the skin out too much. So there's this fine line between definitely, when the dog is itching a lot, there is a flora problem, not only internally, but also externally. If they're itchy, usually they need a bath 2 to 3 times a week. And then as they itch less, we try and back away from the baths. We try to let their own flora, their own healthy bacterial balance and yeast balance in the skin and their own sebum take over. Because the average dog who has no allergies doesn't need a bath more than once a month. Especially if they're not kibble fed, you'll find the dogs smell differently when they're kibble fed. They have to have more baths, they're kind of stinky. That stinky is usually yeast. Because when we feed a pet kibble, a lot of times we're feeding at least 60% carbohydrates, feeding the yeast that's on the skin, and that's that kind of like Frito, people talk about it, Frito smells in the paws, and also just their coat smells like a dog. It's amazing when they're raw fed or homemade fed, because even whether it's cooked or not, they stop smelling as much like a dog. It's pretty cool. We use herbal therapies to help balance the skin and fight infection, and acupuncture also to help strengthen the immune system here at the clinic. So those are just some ideas of things you can do to help your pet, and a lot of them are done at home. So what do you guys think about that? I'll also, in the description, I'll put some other suggestions. If you haven't done it already, just subscribe, share, follow, and let your friends know that there's holistic and alternative ways of treating the pets, not only just suppressing the symptoms, but instead it's figuring out what's giving rise to those symptoms. So sometimes there's these biome problems, or there's parasite problems, kind of other problems. But a lot of the times, by and large, the pet is on the wrong diet. If your pet's scratching, you know you need to change the diet. That is just like easy peasy, absolutely always true. So, and I don't care if your vet says it's outdoor allergies or environmental allergies, they still have to have their diet changed. Because what's happening is the liver in Chinese medicine is getting overwhelmed. Too many toxins are going into the body, and there are a lot of times they're toxins that the body has created itself. Too much heat because there's too much inflammation. So inflammation and heat makes a petri dish, and now the yeast and pathologic bacteria can just thrive. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you 5 things you can do to help your pet with itching. It's hard to relax when the animal can't relax, right? Because you just want everybody to sleep, and the dog is up, or the cat is up scratching or chewing, just driving you crazy. So I get it, because I've had pets like this too. My little dog Smudge used to scratch all the time, until I realized, oh my gosh, I have to change the diet. So We need to change the diet and get off of carbohydrates. So that generally means getting off of a kibble. Doing a homemade or raw food. It doesn't have to be raw. Some pets don't do well with raw, but that's okay. We need to do something homemade. And usually we're cooking meat and vegetables. You can see my other videos for more information about that. We're doing bioflavonoid-rich vegetables. So we're doing dark leafy green vegetables. We're doing a mix of colors, and we're bringing those flavonoids into the pet. Green tea, we're often adding green tea to the food, and I can put all these things in the description. Those things help the liver, help the immune system, and the mast cells not degranulate as much. So there's less inflammation to begin with. So we talked about changing the food. We talked about doing a flavonoid rich. That means you're gonna have to add vegetables. So some of the raw feeders out there, they don't like vegetables, and I'm here to say we have vegetables that help strengthen the liver, those being dandelion greens, burdock root, cilantro, beet greens. We use all of these things in about 25% of the diet, up to 40% of the diet can be vegetables. And we use them all the time to help us. In addition to help the biome be happy, we use apple cider vinegar, and we also use psyllium. So did you guys know psyllium is a great way to make healthy bacteria even healthier in the GI tract? Reduce the dependency on pharmaceutical intervention. The more we use antibiotics for skin infections, the more we're going to need more antibiotics for skin infections. And then pretty soon we have a nasty resistant Pseudomonas infection, and now we have to go back to the starting gate again. And remember, the first rule is you have to change the food. You have to change the diet. Allergies are really at the core of most of the time why pets itch, and so we have to figure out what we're going to do there. We usually stop chicken. We might stop beef. We might stop fish and fish oil. And we might stop the carbohydrates. So we have to reduce the amount of allergens that we're giving the pet. And then we use different custom Chinese herbal formulas that help with inflammation in the skin and help the liver to detoxify some of these things. So let me know what you guys think about that. What have you done for your pet's allergies? What's really helped you? Why don't you be part of the discussion? Because we don't want pets out there scratching. Thanks so much, you guys. Thanks so much, you guys. Subscribe, share, comment, tell all your friends, ask me anything you guys want. Thanks so much.